Ooh, I see some comments coming in the chat. We're looking forward to having you here too, Dr. Love. Awesome, awesome. All right, I'm gonna say it again. You've heard it before. I'm Dominique, the community coordinator of Faces for Change, and as folks are coming in, we've got a pre-conference evaluation. The link is gonna be down in the chat. We'd appreciate it if you can fill that out. That said, we're gonna have a post-evaluation later. Stay tuned, but for now, we're focusing on pre-evaluation. All right, it looks like we've got an activity coming up for y'all. Just a little something to do as we wait before the conference to start. All right, we've got some words up on the screen. This is a little bit of a scramble for you. See the words up there? They're a little bit jumbled right now, but we're hoping that you can help us unscramble these hip-hop related words. As you figure them out, feel free to drop them, unscrambled of course, in the chat. And we're excited to see what you find. Thank you, Tim. Seeing hip hop as the first one. Good eye there. All right, I'm seeing a lot more folks coming in closer as we get to start. This is another reminder. I'm Dominique Dean, the community coordinator, and we've got our pre-evaluation link down in the chat. This is going to help us get a little bit more feedback as y'all are coming in, so we'd appreciate it if you can fill that out for us. We'll have another post-conference link coming up later, but for now, we're just one thing at a time. We're going with the pre-evaluation. Ooh, I see some more words trickling in. What have we? Dr. Love found producer. What's that, number 7? Yeah, that's a good one. That's tricky. Not sure I would have gotten it there. Thank you for your help. All right, Marty Kassan, let me know if I'm getting that right. I see you spotting substance abuse, going for the long one. We got some YPCI coming in, pulling with the acronyms, unscrambling those.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Christy, and I serve as YPCI, which is the Youth Pop Culture Institute, as well as the Faces for Change intern for this year. We are super excited to have y'all with us here today. I forgot to add another role. I'm also one of the conference producers, so thank you all for coming out. So we want this to be a super interactive and super enjoyable event. So we ask that if you ever have any questions for us, that you use the Q&A portion that's at the bottom of your screen. If you have any comments or you want to share your thoughts with us, we encourage you to put those in the chat. Additionally, we want to tag our social media We are on Instagram and Twitter at Faces for Change, and we are on Facebook at Faces4Change Harrisonburg. All right, and we also encourage y'all to use our hashtag for this conference. It's hashtag HH2P, which stands for Hip Hop to Prevent 2021, which stands for Hip Hop to Prevent 2021. And make sure that y'all tag us so that we can see y'all out there. Tim, do you have anything else you want to add?
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Timothy Jones. Amongst the many hats, I always love wearing my Youth Popular Culture Institute hat because that goes back to the early 90s, like some of the crossword puzzles that we were breaking down. And just wanted to just quickly say that the next 2 days are about building strategies under the premise that we already know that hip hop is a viable tool to prevent substance abuse and promote healthy lifestyles. So share your questions and we're going to do our best to answer all of them. But just know that if we don't, it is not because the question is not valid, but we are very intentional about our focus and what it is that we are trying to accomplish. And we know we're going to do this together. So we just wanted to welcome you and put that out there. And let's have a great event.
Dr. Harper, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm good. Y'all are rolling.
All right, so we are very elated to have many amazing and impactful people in our community as well as outer communities coming to join us for our conference. So first, we want to hear words from our mayor, Deanna Reed. So just a little bit about her. Mayor Reed was sworn into Harrisonburg City Council on January 3rd, 2017, and then selected by her fellow council members as mayor. Becoming the mayor of Harrisonburg made her the first African-American mayor of Harrisonburg and the first female mayor as well. Mayor Reed currently serves as one of the program directors for the On the Road Collaborative, a nonprofit youth empowerment organization that serves more than 300 middle and high school students annually. After hearing remarks from Mayor Reed, we will hear from Jennifer Wilson. Jennifer Wilson is responsible for spearheading the financial management of our CDC grant and ensuring that our coalition remains in compliance with all federal guidelines and oversees our plan of action. Additionally, she serves as the Faces for Change Coalition Chair and Business Sector Representative. We are happy that she stepped up to the place to work with us with Faces for Change. So please welcome Mayor Deanna Reed and shortly after, Jennifer Wilson.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the City of Harrisonburg and City Council, I am truly excited to welcome you to the first, and I'm going to claim it, annual Faces for Change virtual conference. Hopefully it won't be virtual the next time we meet. The City of Harrisonburg is excited to collaborate with Dr. Hicks Harper, the staff and community stakeholders to combat substance use among youth in our great city. So thank you everyone for taking on this very important mission, contributing your time and resources. And just as importantly, I thank you for making the youth of our friendly city a priority in your work. Dr. Hicks Harper has brought resources to Harrisonburg through her writing of the Centers of Disease Control grant. We are so thankful that you, Tondi, wanted to do this work in our city. Now that I know that I support you and will work very hard to provide city resources to help prevent and minimize the substance use risks among youth. So enjoy the conference. I look forward to the next 2 days, and the city and city council look forward to working with you as we combat substance abuse together and make a healthier, stronger community. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. Good morning, everybody. As aforementioned, my name is Jennifer Wilson, and I serve in the roles of Coalition Chair and Business Associated for Faces for Change. This is no doubt a somber time as we have a staggering number of substance abuse cases amongst our youth in Harrisonburg and Rockingham counties. But it's also an exciting time. As some of you may have seen in the press release, Faces for Change has been around since 2009, with the late Dr. Doris Harper Allen being one of the first to join the coalition. At that time, it was unfunded. We have now been blessed to have the opportunity to have federal funding as of December 2020, which allows us to reach out into the community. And in doing so, we can bring awareness to this issue, but also take action, specifically in the avenue of prevention. So this grant also allows us to collaborate with organizations both inside and outside of Harrisonburg and Rockingham communities, which leads us here today and tomorrow as Faces for Change Harrisonburg Drug-Free Communities Coalition presents Hip Hop to Prevent virtual conference. Hip Hop to Prevent, better known as H2P, is not some fly-by-night approach. It's an evidence-based curriculum that engages youth by using principles found in hip hop culture and encourages them to make better, healthier, drug-free choices. This is going to be amazing because I know a lot of you guys might think music and hip hop, might relate hip hop to music, but it's so much more than that. And we're going to learn how hip hop impacts and influences our everyday lives. I just want to thank my coalition members and also all of you for joining to stand beside us as we fight this epidemic. Because in the words of Linda Creed, famously sung by Whitney Houston, I believe the children are our future. Thanks again and enjoy the conference. Over to you, Dominique.
All right. Thank you so much, Mayor Reed and Ms. Wilson, for those words. Hey, howdy, hey, it's me, it's Dominique once again, and we are glad to have you at our Hip Hop to Prevent virtual conference. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Faces for Change. We're something new to the Burgh, or, well, new with funding. We're a drug-free community coalition funded by the CDC. Our goal is to connect, collaborate, and impact our community through positive change. As of 2010, there are 740 DFC coalitions throughout America, and we're adding the city of Harrisonburg and Rockingham County to that number. But, you know, there's only but so much I can say about our coalition, so why don't I show you something instead? I think it's time for a video.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Pastor Costello Forne, and I'm the pastor of John Wesley United Methodist Church here in Harrisonburg. And I am the community connector for Faces for Change of Harrisonburg. I'm here to tell you what's happening. We are in for a great 2 days. Let me tell you that right up front. We will be increasing our understanding about the hip hop culture and how it can be used for our youth substance abuse as a preventive measure. We will hear about data outcomes, community initiatives, and how courts and law enforcement deal with these related challenges. Young people will speak up and speak out. And we will even experience some positive raps, along with outstanding keynote speakers. You will certainly be engaged. So as TD Jake says, get ready, get ready, get ready. There'll be a lot to share and a lot to learn.
All right. Well, hello everyone again. So I'm super grateful and honored to have the privilege to introduce the one and only Dr. Pitandi Hicks Harper, who is our Faces for Change Program Director, as well as the YPCI President and CEO. So a little bit about Dr. Harper. She has extensively studied and continues to research and explore and evaluate hip hop's influence within youth pop culture. Her hip hop development theory is the foundation of our Faces for Change environmental strategies to combat the drug use among youth. So everyone, please clap your hands virtual from afar for Dr. Harper.
Hey, everybody, what's up? Thank you, Chrissy, and greetings to everyone in the room. Just know that this conference is meant to be a trigger, introducing an evidence-based strategy found to work for substance use prevention targeting youth. Yes, it's no different than anyone would expect, but your broader vision and openness during the next 2 days will reveal how the use of hip hop's formal features can motivate youth to choose and advocate for healthy lifestyles amongst their peers. The key is to start from where youth are already, and a very large number of them in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County and throughout the country, and dare I say throughout the world, are into hip hop. But what exactly is hip hop? And what about it should we know, Chrissy?
Well, I believe that when we talk about hip hop, we have to think about not just the music, but you have to think about the history behind the lyrics. You have to think about the culture, the meanings behind it. There's just so much history embedded in hip hop that I think everyone should learn about. You know, there's always a focus on the negative, but we never really talk about the positive of hip hop.
I agree. So let's get into the first panel. I'm ready.
All right, so for our first panel, speaking of hip hop, it's called Hip Hop the 411. And joining this panel for us, we have Timothy Jones, Martha Diaz, and John Robinson. And just a little bit about them. Timothy Jones is the Chief Visionary Officer at #HipHopEd, founder of Techniques for Learning, and YPCI's Senior Advisor and Director of Youth Operations. Next, we have Martha Diaz, who is a community organizer, media producer, archivist, curator, and educator. She is the founder of Hip Hop Education Center, Hip Hop Communiversity, and plays a vital role in the new Universal Hip Hop Museum, set to open soon. Next, we have John Robinson, who is a co-author book of Youth Pop Culture Power, founding member of Code Society, hip hop artist and visionary over the past 2 decades. Code Society uses original hip hop music, youth culture, and more to teach basic coding concepts and foundational computer sciences. Let's welcome them all.
Wow, I'm excited about them. These are my peeps here. This is my fam. But let's start off by defining hip hop in its most basic terms. Tim, why don't you talk for a minute about the relevance of hip hop's beginnings and just give a basic definition 101 of hip hop culture.
Wow, you got me going first with such an illustrious group. I got Mama Martha looking over my shoulder with the new hairstyle, so she is turned up. The homie JR in the building. But honestly, when you think about the definition of hip hop, it was the silent screams that became a voice for a community that was deemed voiceless. And it was a continuation of artistic legacy that really has been in the veins and heart of us as a people. And it manifested into different cultural arts and knowledge of self. So that's really kind of a very small but broad definition of hip hop in its early stages. That's what it was. And many of us were doing it before we even realized it was hip hop. So I just wanted to put that out there as just kind of a beginning, knowing that my crew will continue to add building blocks to that definition.
Yes, and just jump in there. And I just want to say, like I mentioned, this is the crew. This is the ultimate. This is the young people that are on the front line. And I'm saying young people because I'm the OG. On the front line, really doing the work when it comes to hip hop education. Does anybody want to add to Tim's definition of hip hop? Because we want to make sure that folks at least get a trigger definition so that they can begin to understand how they can use hip hop in their work.
Sure. I'll add and say hip hop for me is one of the most phenomenal cultures I've came a part of, just because it brings people together seamlessly, no matter what culture, religion, school of thought, but just at its essence, you know, it's the epitome of making something from nothing. It's the epitome of hacking. It's the epitome of taking the little bit that you have in front of you and hack it to a resource that could turn into something bigger. And as Tim said, it is the voice of the voiceless. And there's a lot of layers that goes into the essence of hip hop that are not always easy to describe if you're not a part of it and connected to it in that way. So I guess the easiest way for me to describe it is the hip is the coolness, the hop is the movement, you know, and it's one of the coolest aesthetics we've seen in our lifetime. Everything wants to be attached to it and a part of it. Even the outsiders connect to it or try to.
Thank you for that, John Robinson. No, I want to say JR. All right, Martha, what role did the Latinx population play?
I have a little definition.
Okay,
Just-
okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. I just wanted to bring you in.
Sprinkle something. I think
Yeah.
everything that was said is definitely describes hip hop, but I think there's a invisible side of hip hop that we don't really talk about, and we need to tap into if we want to get into hip hop, or if we want to understand hip hop, which is that it's a spirit, it's an energy you draw from, that helps you with resilience. It helps you reimagine yourself. It makes you invincible. You can do anything, but you have to tap into it. It's like listening to whatever favorite song from whatever genre you like. It's like getting into the groove, it's like doing a great workout. And you feel great. That's how hip hop affects me. And I think that that's a spirit, that's an energy force.
So basically what you're saying that as we work to successfully engage young people, it's important that we tap into that spirit. It's important that we tap into that whole energy, whether we like hip hop or not. We have to tune into it because that's what young people are into. Well, Martha, since you're on a roll right now, what role did the Latinx population play in the emergence of hip hop? And I'd like you to speak your answer in English and in Spanish for our Latinx viewers. Okay.
Sí, buenos días todo el mundo, ¿cómo están? We Latinos were in the South Bronx in the Bronx period, because hip hop wasn't, even though they say it was birthed in the Bronx, you know, it was happening everywhere. It was starting to, develop organically in populations of color around the country, urban populations. And Latinos were there in the Bronx, immigrants from the Caribbean, from South America, were living side by side with African Americans, Jamaicans, Trinis, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we were expressing ourselves based on our culture that we were bringing, and we were sampling and mixing. And so I think that hip hop culture was developed with Latinos. And I would even say that with, other immigrants, like Greek immigrants, and Polish immigrants, Italians, they were also there, but primarily the Latino, played a critical role, because we were rolling with African Americans, with the Black community, and adding to what was already, happening. Los latinos siempre hemos estado unidos con los morenos, y siempre estábamos ahí con ellos, haciendo la música, entregando nuestro sabor de salsa y merengue y bachata, y todo eso estaba ahí con los que estaban haciendo la música de hip hop. Y entonces nosotros siempre estamos ahí con la comunidad.
Oh, yes. Woo! I tell you, so basically we can't put hip hop in a box. It's just a Black thing or a white thing. It's a global thing. So it touches various racial ethnic groups. And so, Tim, why is this conversation even necessary as we work to combat drug use among young people?
The conversation is necessary on a couple of fronts. One front, just piggybacking off of what you just asked, Martha, and we're all scholars here. So to really study and explain and explore hip hop, you also have to have a Venn diagram and see where it was influenced the culture of punk rock. So I'm saying that to say, because when I looked at the video for Harrisonburg, you have Latinx, you have whites. And so a lot of times we try to come at hip hop with this racial divide that already goes against what hip hop is in essence. So when you're talking about that spirit, it transcends race, it transcends ethnicity. And so we were taught to see our differences as dividers, as opposed to the sprinkling of the different seasonings that makes one pot of stew or gumbo hot. It's also critical to have this discussion now because the industry has actually presented hip hop as a drug. And so I say that to say that if you study it, that now even the way that it sounds sonically is being packaged and presented as a drug, which then leads you to think that I have to be on a drug to fully connect to what's being presented. And so what we are doing is having a conversation that really will do a combination of deprogramming and shout out the code reprogramming, so that they can see that honestly hip hop spiritually is already inside of them. So we're really not giving them something new. We're helping them to recognize and better control what's in them. So like in 10 seconds, you think about the X-Men, and when the young people have these different powers, they go to the school to learn how to better harness the powers that are already inside of them. So when we're doing this work, we're really not teaching hip hop as an external. We're really teaching hip hop as a refinement and recognition of what is internal.
Yes. Woo! I tell you, they're heavyweights. So John, there have been artists, you can name them, that have recently and in the past died from drug overdoses. How can we even think about using hip hop to prevent drug use? Isn't this a paradox? How can hip hop for prevention even be working if that's the case?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel, well, the music part of hip hop, right, already discusses in detail all that we're trying to prevent, right? So I feel just tapping into the music is a great entry point to have these conversations, you know, because young people are saying the lyrics whether they know what they actually mean or not. So it's like, that's where you start, where they're at, what they're listening to, what they're taking in, and kind of find out what they know or what they don't know or where they are in it all. And I think that's one of the ways to use the music part of hip hop as an entry point, just to start the conversation, because a lot of times these conversations aren't happening. Adults aren't conversing with young people about these things until they're too late, most of the time. So that's what I'll say. The music, great entry point. The discussions are happening in the music. Young people are intaking all of this intel, but there's no adults there to translate it for them. There's no adults to give them the real information. There's mostly peer-to-peer learning in this dangerous forum, and they don't have the information. We're the ones that need to get it to them.
Yeah, that's good. Because you know that a lot of folks probably that are listening are saying hip hop is about drugs, but folks are dying left and right. DMX just died from overdose. You got Timbaland, you got T.I. I mean, there's a lot of hip hop artists who have used drugs. So, you know, you are talking about using hip hop to prevent, you know, what are you talking about? Martha, do you want to weigh in on this question or?
Yes, well, we have to look at hip hop in two ways. Like hip hop for some people is the only way out, right? From a bad situation. And, you know, those artists who have come from these terrible backgrounds have made it through with their resilience, just tapping into hip hop, and still have not been, have not addressed their trauma. So they are still going through the same cycle. They're out of the hood, they're out of the bad situation, but they're still carrying the load of trauma. So that's one thing that we have to understand, that it's a miracle that they made it out. And that's a big achievement. Now, on the other hand, you don't see most of the wonderful music of hip hop that is being created because the media outlets are just not sharing that. And so as a young person, you really have to do your research. And I know you are looking at the YouTube videos like I am, and you're seeing that there are many, 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 many more artists that you don't hear on the radio, that you don't see in the videos, that are not on television. And that's really where the brilliance of our community is at. And the culture, you have to understand the culture. Not only do you have to understand the lyrics, you have to understand that there's a culture, there's a community, there are elders, there are pioneers, architects of this movement, and there are young people who are being born today that are basically coming out doing head spins. Like, we have evolved in the culture so much that we have hip hop at the Olympics now. We have breaking at the Olympics. So you have to dig, you have to do your research, you have to do fact checking. And I think, you know, the Trump era has proven that, you know, there are all these this programming, right, to help you deviate from your goal, from being the best person you can be. And so that's one thing que tienes que hacer tu tarea y buscar los artistas que son positivos, porque si no, vas a ver lo mismo, vas a oír lo mismo, porque la televisión no está enseñando los artistas que pueden ayudar, que pueden inspirar. So, yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. You're talking about digging, and this ties into the next question I have for Tim. And you can really respond to Martha if you want to also.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is a conversation that
Gotcha.
we have all the time, right?
Mhm.
So she talked about digging and what we have to do if we're going to be successful with our work. So what do you have to say to folks who are listening about increasing what I always call their hip hop cultural competency? What exactly do they need to do? And also give them a sense of, or name a couple of artists that may be dropping some positive, some lyrics and so forth, whereas they could take baby steps in terms of listening to.
Okay. I'm gonna touch on both. One, the notion of what's the notion of what is positive is actually relative. Case in point, some people could say Juice WRLD, G Herbo, positive, because, you know, Juice WRLD actually died from an overdose. But
Juice WRLD is an artist.
Juice WRLD is an artist who died from an overdose. But when you listen to his music, are you hearing just the drugs being glorified? Are you hearing the drugs being a way to cope with the conditions that ultimately led to his death? So do we critique the young messenger, or do we use his message as a window to really evaluate the ecosystem that him and so many millions of other people relating to, where drugs is being presented as the alternative? You take G Herbo, he has an entire album called PTSD. He realizes that, to Martha's point, it's one hand to be a miracle where you make it out. And he's coming out of Chicago, out of drill culture, like the bottom. But then by him getting out, he had the opportunity to actually get diagnosed that, yo, it's not just me. There is something going on. And so then he uses his platform to then create a foundation, because he realized there's a lot of young cats that look like me that will never step into a mental health space. But if I do it, they're going to do it. So the short-sighted would be like, oh, he's talking about guns, he's talking about drugs. And a lot of times, to Martha's point, they watch the YouTube video of their music video, but don't dig deep into some of the things that these young people are doing with their platform and speaking outside of the music. The truth is, these young people are hurting. These young people also believe and have a hope that they can change the world. And I think sometimes as adults, we spend too much time critiquing their methods as opposed to aligning to the intentionality of what it is that they're trying to do. We're sitting here now, we're polished, we're older. If we had this same conversation in the early 90s, we're not as eloquent in our speech as we are now. We're not talking about spirituality the way that we are now, but we will put adult level judgment on some young people whose frontal lobes haven't even closed yet. And so that, for me, I would say that. But there's another artist named Rod Wave, and I'm intentionally naming artists that are not very commercial, but I promise you, your young people know who these artists are. Yes. And so when you listen to the music, you hear the moans. He has a song called Tombstone that just came out. And so it's like you have young people who are early 20s already talking about their tombstone. So what's happening between their birth certificate and their tombstone that we need to address?
All right. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's why our mayor said this needs to be annual, and we need to have longer than 20-minute conversations, because it can get really, really deep. So we have to be careful of our adultism, is what Tim was talking about. And I'm sure everybody would agree. We have to make sure that we constantly value young people regardless of where they are in life. The methamphetamine use of young people throughout the country, and specifically we're talking about Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, is above the prevalence rate nationally. So we have to really, really be, whether it's mild cannabis, and we know our cannabis can affect the mind and the brain of a young person, particularly if they're under 20 years old. So I think what the panelists are saying is we have to really, really tune in to where our young people, they're dealing with trauma, they're dealing with death, they're dealing with so many things, and it's not different in Harrisonburg. Unquestionably, it's not different. So as we begin to close, I don't know if we have any questions, but I just want you to know that you can constantly put questions in the chat. We want you to engage, and if we don't get to your question right after this panel, we are going to work hard to get to your questions. But in closing, I'd like each one of you to just take a minute and just say, okay, what do you want to say to Harrisonburg, to the world, to the country? What do you want to say about hip hop culture and what they need to tune into if they're going to successfully engage young people? What's your trigger point that you want them to get as we close out this particular session? John, you want to start with me? Okay. I don't see that.
Yeah, I'll start by saying, if you're an adult tuned in right now and you're building with young people on a daily, teaching, etc., mentorship, whatever it is, tap in a way that even if you're not connected to hip hop as much as you feel you need to be, or you feel discouraged in that way, center it, center the culture and embrace it. Show the young people around you that you see them, you hear them, you feel them, by just being open enough to hear what they have to say and tap into what they're into, because it brings this connection and these relationships closer. If you're not in their world and the relationships don't connect in this organic, authentic way that young people could see through very easily, you never really get to that other part of the conversation. You're never able to deliver the real jewels. So I would say, start there, center it in your space, allow it, embrace it, and let them be seen and heard.
Yes. Okay, we have about 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll be quick. Yes, I would say it takes a village, right? We know this. We have to come together. This isn't just the parents' role responsibility, it is the teacher's responsibility, is the police officer's responsibility, is the neighbor's responsibility. And so we all have to take care of each other. And so we have to give young people the opportunity to learn and make mistakes. And, it's okay. It's not the end of the world unless they, do something crazy. But the point is that if you just give them the chance to tell you what they want, and you give them a platform and you give them a chance to try something new, they will welcome that. And I know that with my programs, I've been just giving them the pen and saying, what do you want to see in your curriculum? What do you want to see in your community? How will you change it? And giving them the leadership role, and I'm just there to facilitate. So
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Tim has 30 seconds.
I would say hip hop is both global but local. Focus on what young people are doing in Harrisonburg. That little clip showed people skateboarding. Like, your hip hop is whatever is rocking in your town. A lot of times these smaller cities feel like they have this innate inferiority complex because they always have to look out. I challenge the people of Harrisonburg, make Harrisonburg pop. The same way that there was a time Cleveland wasn't mapped. Or like, hip hop has moved all the way around. Trust me, there are voices, there's a style, there's a verve, there's movement in Harrisonburg. Make that your hip hop and elevate the voices and life right where you are as a part of the global. So it's global and local at the same time.
Yes. Let's everybody give them some emojis or something. Whew. That was fantastic. And I really want to thank you. We want to thank you, Faces for Change. We want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to rock with us today. Thank you, Martha, for even bringing in the whole piece about the sectors and collaboration, because that's what Faces for Change is about. It's about sector collaborations, partnerships, bringing resources to the table. Tim, son, I just want to thank you so much. John, you're awesome as usual, and thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll hang around for the next hour or two, and come back tomorrow. Feel free and share the link so that folks can tune in. Okay, so for those in Harrisonburg who have not picked them up, there are booklets available. You can pick them up. We'll let you know. And not only that, hopefully those who are not in Harrisonburg, Rockham County, you are able to download an electronic copy of the conference booklet so that you can be writing into the booklet as you see fit. Okay, let's prep for this. Let's go to this keynote. Pastor Forney, what you got? You're on mute.
Okay. All right, here I am again, Pastor Forney from John Wesley. Now for our youth keynote address. Young Elder is a 19-year-old recording artist and Healing Youth Alliance ambassador. She is also a member of the Trauma Informed Care Task Force, co-founder of her business, Quarantine Delights, a Heart Smiles youth leader, and a freshman at Coppin State University. For any questions or comments on or about her keynote, please use the Q&A and or the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. Like she said, my name is Young Elder. I'm 19, and I'm here to give you guys a youth perspective on not only how powerful hip hop, how powerful of a tool that can be to engage youth, but also how we can engage youth to not only prevent drugs, because we're trying to do more than that, but also encourage them to push themselves further. So as a youth living in Baltimore, as I was preparing for this, I was really thinking, like, why is hip hop so important? you know. So I was listening to music, and the thing that really clicked to me is with hip hop, a lot of times it seems like the artist is saying what I want to say instead of me just having to go out and say it. Sometimes it can be really hard expressing your feelings, especially growing up in a city like Baltimore, where my peers and I are experiencing high rates of trauma, like extreme homelessness, food insecurity, you know, having our friends pass away. So when rappers are talking about this stuff, although a lot of times they may be talking about drugs and abusing drugs, a lot of times they also give that perspective of, in reality, that's not really what I want for my life, you know, because we know a lot of youth we're not ignorant. We understand that the life of crime either leads to jail or the penitentiary. We know that. So a lot of times just having artists express how they feel on our behalf can really be a really vital part of that healing process, because a lot of times we have feelings, like I said, that we just don't know how to express. So like Mr. Timothy said, Polo G, these are some of my favorite artists, you know, Raw Wave, like he mentioned, these artists, like he said, he was talking about a tombstone, but he's not necessarily talking about, oh, I'm ready to die. He's talking about how it feels to have these feelings of not wanting to be here necessarily, and understanding that a lot of people don't appreciate you until you're actually gone. So just kind of understanding the deeper message to those songs and the meaning behind it. And me, like she said, I'm a recording artist as well. So I make music about helping my peers elevate themselves. I don't really talk a lot about, you know, trying not to use drugs, just because I just try to talk about how to push us and elevate us. But now that we're talking about it, I'm excited to actually incorporate that, because I feel like that would be a better way to like encourage my peers. So I have once a clip of a song that I kind of want to break down for you guys. And it came to me at the last minute as Mr. Timothy was talking. And so this is a song by J. Cole called Friends. And he gives many different perspectives throughout the song when it comes to drug abuse. So in the beginning, he's talking about cop another bag of smoke today. So basically just talking about every day, you know, he's getting drugs. But then he talks about how, yeah, he uses the drugs and it makes him feel lifted, but he doesn't, he knows it's wrong, but he's questioning it. Does that make sense? Like, he knows that drug use isn't good, but he also knows that when he takes the drugs, it kind of gets him away from that negative place. So I'm gonna play it real quick, and I'm gonna just let you guys hear it so you can understand. And then just like she said, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat.
Today, cop another bag of smoke today. Cop another bag of smoke today. I got thoughts and control, got me down, got me low. Where's my mind? Where's my soul? When I blow, am I wrong? Just let me know. Feels so right to let things go. Don't think twice. This is me. This is how I should be.
So before we get to the next part, you see how he's kind of like, he's confused. You know, he's not really sure if drugs is where he's supposed to go, or if he really needs to make the right decision. And I feel like that's really good. When I heard the song, it really kind of changed my perspective on drugs, because at first I'm thinking, you know, people just do drugs because something's wrong with them. But in reality, a lot of times youth are actually using these drugs to cope. So if we can incorporate methods to actually explain to these kids that that's not really the way to cope, then it'll be easier for them to pick up the message. It's one more part of this song that I want you guys to hear, because he gives an opposite perspective and expresses like the negative effects of the drugs.
But I'm aggravated without it. My Saturdays are without it. My Saturdays are the loudest. I'm going strong. Some niggas graduated to powder. I dabble later. I doubt it. My database and my narcotics is going long.
So you get that? He said my database and narcotics is growing long. So it kind of explains how marijuana, because in the beginning he's talking about just copping marijuana, how it can lead to other things. So he's kind of breaking that down, even though they always come to the schools and they say, you know, don't do drugs, kids, it's a gateway. When I have my favorite artists saying that after smoking weed, my database on narcotics is just getting longer, it kind of make me seem like that's not really the route that I want to go down, considering the negative consequence that he's talking about. He's aggravated without it. His saddest days are the loudest. Like, loud usually refers to marijuana. And when people say they sad, like, saddest days are the loudest. So when I'm low, I'm smoking weed. You know, so it's kind of just giving a different perspective of how, yeah, it may seem cool, but a lot of times it really doesn't help. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I hope that I explained that well to you. I just really want you guys to understand that hip hop is vital. It's a language, like she said, it's a culture, like it's a different feeling, and it takes you to a different place. So being able to relay an important message through music and how we can really encourage our youth, I know that that's the right route to go.
Wow. I mean, that was point on. I don't know if there are any questions, but I think that, I mean, not only did young elder, I love that, young elder. Yes, Martha, it was powerful. Not only did she talk about the effects of drugs, okay, she talked about how artists, they're metaphorical in their presentation, and she quoted Tim, and I know he loves that one, because everybody's dropping jewels right now. So are there any questions? And while you're thinking about the questions, I just want to drop in here that our young people in Harrisburg, Rockingham County, particularly because that's what we're talking about a lot today, but our young people worldwide, they're not blight, regardless of what they're dealing with. They are actually bloom, okay? And we have to look at them like that. We can't look at them as kids at risk or young people at risk, because that's labeling them. We have to look at them as young people who live in situations that are risky. Okay, so we have to be careful of our terminology. So as we move, I just want to play a piece that young elder did that really speaks to we're not blight. Our young people are not blight, but we're bloom. Can we do that, Destiny or Tech? Let's play that.
Like we bloom. We ain't like we bloom. We ain't like we bloom. We ain't like we bloom. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Before you pick up the blunt, think for a minute. Cause you gotta be smart and you don't even know what's in it. Like what about your wallet or the money you be spending and your mama doesn't know? So you gotta keep it hidden, but listen, yeah, I get it, yeah. See, I know you might be stressing and they making it seem cool, but you don't gotta impress them. All the money you be spending, think it's best if you invest it. Or go and find your passion. Focus on your craft, think it's best if you perfect it. If something got you hurting, think it's best if you address it. I know, but we done have you moving real slow. And you gotta stay focused, gotta stay on your toes. Cause you just hit for greatness, so it's time to set goals. And we the self-destructive, we got studies and shows. We gotta keep it grinding, cause now we on the road. Say we gotta keep it grinding now, cause we on the road. From progress, not just pain. But we can wash away the trauma with the rain. We ain't like
Whoa. So, I mean, I just want to say, just like people in the chat, this, they saying fire, 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 young elder. And, you know, just real quick, we work with our young people and our young people work with us. And that's the beauty of even working with young people like young elder, just working with her to, you know, I know it was late last night, 3 hours in the morning, just, you know, just working and talking to each other. That's important. So she'll definitely be back, but yes, let me just say yes, she'll definitely be back. So let's just keep it. Oh, we have a question.
We have one question.
One
Question from Timothy Jones. Young elder, how can adults help young people when they don't live or fully understand the environment?
Honestly, the only really answer to that is just being able to be open to have that conversation. I feel like when you have conversations with people, even though you may not exactly relate what they're talking about, at the end of the day, I feel like everybody relates somewhere. So if you just are willing to be open and willing to be vulnerable, and as an adult, really just being able to expose yourself, put yourself in that youth place to be just as vulnerable as them. Because when I'm talking to an adult and I'm telling them something that may be really personal, if I can tell that they're vulnerable in that moment as well, it makes me more comfortable to want to talk to them or just express how I'm feeling to them. But I would just say really focus on the empathy part and not the sympathy part, because I've seen a lot of adults, you tell them something bad and it just like, dang, like, and I don't need that. Like, if I say, I was late to school because I missed the bus, even if you never caught the bus before, just say, man, I understand how it feel to be late. I'm sorry that happened to you, so just trying to being able to connect, because a lot of times the reason why youth and adults don't, able to be successful is because it's a disconnect.
All right, thank you. We're on the same page. Empathy versus sympathy. Oh gosh. I mean, hashtag. We need to hashtag that. I want to remind you to make sure that you connect with us in the via your social media. Can we just put that up again? If you're using social media, let's make sure that you tag us and use your conference booklet to write down anything that you want to write down that you're learning. I hear you, Danny. For many adults, a lack of, I just see a lot of stuff in the chat. So make sure if we have any other questions, she's going to be back on our youth panel. So we'll make sure that we ask them then. But let's just take a moment to reflect. Chrissy?
Yeah, so a lot of great information thus far. And we want to use this moment for y'all to be able to check in, whether in the chat, in your conference booklet. Ultimately, we just want y'all to check in and kind of, tell us what you're thinking, whether you want to put it in your booklet or you want to share with us your thoughts. We would love to hear what everyone's thinking right now. So we're just going to take a quick moment to give y'all that time and space.
Yeah, just 60 seconds. Just reflect, write down some thoughts about what you're hearing.
All right, so moving right on along, now we'll move into our second panel where we'll be focusing on the data, dangers, and risk of substance use in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, much of which is where you are. So this is super relevant information. And joining us for this panel, we have Brandy Hayden and Debbie Kipps Vaughn. And just a little bit about them. Brandy Hayden is a behavioral health wellness learning coordinator at Harrisonburg Rockingham Community Services Board based in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And Debbie Kipps Vaughn is an associate professor in graduate level psychology at James Madison University. Go Dukes. All right, let's welcome them to our panel.
Yes, hello, Brandy and Debbie. It's so good to see you. All right, we're gonna jump right in here. So what does the data say about youth drug use in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County? And it's probably similar throughout the country. Just give us a brief overview, even if you speak without the numbers, because Brandy is awesome. She can give you all the numbers and so forth, but just give us a little summary. What's the big picture data telling us? This is just a trigger.
Debbie, would you like me to take that one?
Yes, I want you to take that.
So what we're seeing from the data is that the more culturally acceptable substances and accessible substances are the ones that are being used most frequently. And for our area, of course, that's going to be alcohol, tobacco products, because Virginia just passed tobacco 21, so you now have to be over the age of 21 to purchase tobacco products. And then marijuana, which is now in the process of being legalized, but still there's going to be an age limit. So it will still be illegal for youth to use marijuana. After that, I would say one of the pieces that is probably most troubling is our methamphetamine use compared to not only the rest of Virginia, but the nation. We are double the national average. And while that's still considered in sort of the single digit percentiles, doubling anything is still concerning. And that's primarily because with the adult population, there definitely is a culture of methamphetamine use within Harrisonburg and Rockingham County. And I think you will see that up and down the 81 corridor as well. So that's not unique to Rockingham County, but I would say that it's a factor that separates us from the rest of Virginia and then also from the rest of the United States.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That was succinct. Okay, Debbie, I know a little bit about the work that you do, and I want to ask you, what should those working to successfully engage youth be concerned about when it comes to mental health challenges that youth may be faced with? And this is something, mental health challenges, Harrisonburg, Rockingham County, New York, California, every region of the country, every region of the world. So talk to me a little bit about tell those who are listening what they should be focused in on or be concerned about when it comes to mental health.
There's so much I can say about mental health, but first I just want to say, wow, this conference is fantastic. I've learned so much and just appreciate the work and the love that is happening, that I'm very encouraged that this is going to spread out and reach and impact the lives of the children in our community. It's very, very exciting to see. In regards specifically to the mental health piece, it's a major concern because we see 75 to like 90% of youth that are engaged in substance use having comorbidity with mental health issues. Externalizing behaviors like ADHD and conduct disorder, using all those labels that really get us into trouble and pathologize, but that's what the research calls it. And depression and anxiety. When I was in training, it was always, you have to treat the substance use first and before you could address the mental health issues. That's not what we're holding to necessarily. You can't separate things out that are going on with a young person. You can't divide them into pieces and parts. So those are things you want to be attentive to at the same time that you're having discussions. When you're talking with young people about their substance use, it's mainly listening, and you're listening to their stories and what's important to them. And the part that young Elder was talking about, you're being empathic, that's critical, building that relationship, showing that you understand. And what you don't understand, you ask them to teach you, to inform you. I'm sorry, I've got skylights, so I've got a lot of choo light action going on around here.
Okay.
So you want to really listen to the feelings that they're having, not necessarily with labeling them as anxiety or depression, but what they're actually experiencing. The sadness, the tears, the suicidal ideation, the fear, the anxiety, the panic. So focusing in on that part of their experience is very much a part of having any conversation about substance use. So you can't just move through with an intervention or treatment plan or a conversation just about their substance use. You're going to be attentive to those pieces also.
Can I just stop you for a minute? Because you said about labeling, and that ties into the whole notion of high-risk youth. To me, that's a label. And I know the research uses it. I know, as scholars and academics, we use the research language sometimes. And what do you feel about the terminology high-risk youth? I think from my perspective, we have to be really careful with that, because it's talking about a pathology. It's putting a pathology on top of what young people are. Just a quick response. If you want.
Absolutely. Just to be extremely cautious, those terms are needed for clinicians that are doing, insurance reimbursement, but otherwise only in the sense of what it helps the young person in terms of understanding themselves. I try to only use the language that they use.
Mhm.
I think that's an important way of communicating with anybody, but particularly with young people, use words that they use to describe their experience instead of bringing our language to it and labeling them in a way that then they can easily, mistakenly identify themselves with that label and cause more harm than to be helpful. And that's the last thing we want to be doing.
Right, and they will definitely call you out on it. But Brandy, talk a bit about risks and protective factors that we need to know about when it comes to prevention of substance use among young people. What, in your opinion, are the domains most important, like family, media, school, faith institutions, peers, etc.?
I think it's always important to sort of work in and then out. So definitely the family unit, the feelings of closeness, the clear expectations and boundaries. Youth learn a lot about how to interact with other people in the community from that family unit first and foremost. So whether that's a parent or another caregiver, that's sort of where the foundation lies. And then from there, you go out into the community and engage in the ways that you were taught, and you use the skills that you have. And in some cases, people don't necessarily have the same skills to be able to access healthcare systems. That's a skill that's taught, and it's a very complicated skill that even as an adult who was taught that as a young age, still I struggle with it. How many times do I have to call the dentist back before I get my bill? Like the perseverance it takes in order to continue to engage instead of just shutting off and not wanting to do anything there. So, preventative healthcare is really important, but then we also have to think about sort of environmental factors too. And just to go back to that othering language, anytime the label can be used as a means to definitely create community, right? So like this person speaks to me using this language, they're not a part of my community, they're not safe for me to open up and be vulnerable with, so I'm going to shut them away. And so, identifying with a specific community can be incredibly protective. But if you don't find that within your geographic location, oftentimes youth are then going to turn to online communities where it is a little bit more difficult to, have that transparent relationship. You can easily get yourself into a situation where you're not communicating with who you thought you were. And if you don't necessarily have that strong foundation or a lot of people close to you, you can be pulled into things that, create a lot of burden and disability within your life. Speaking with some of our task force within Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, for example, what they found is that more and more frequently, they're having young women come to them and telling them that they're scared because they've been talking to this guy on Instagram or something like that, and they've shared photos of themselves in compromising nature, and then those pictures are being used against them. I'll send these pictures to everybody on your friends list unless you do this for me. And so that's what we sort of see as being a really high risk factor. If there isn't that strong community bond, if there isn't that feeling of reciprocity, so I feel seen and heard by you, you feel seen and heard to me, then you leave the door open for a lot of risk factors to come in, because people are going to find a way to fill those needs, because that's a shared human need, that companionship, feeling safe, secure, and connected.
You know what, something that you said is really important, which is we have to remain vulnerable. It's okay to pass the torch. It's okay to let young people lead. Faces for Change, Berkeley Community Coalition has a motto, as well as all DFCs throughout the country, is youth-led, adult-driven, or something like that. So we have to make sure that we let young people lead. That's critical. It's okay if they fall down. It's okay if they make mistake. It's okay if they mess up on the Zoom call. And if this goes to black, it's still okay, because a young person is actually running this whole Zoom interaction named Destiny. So if something happens and goes down, it's okay. We just pick it up tomorrow, and that's okay. So the vulnerability part is really important. This is definitely a trigger conversation, and I have to bring the mayor back up. We might have to do this every year, but I want you to really, both of you, piggyback. Are there any questions, Dominique, on this panel so far?
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but I'm enjoying the content.
Okay. Please ask some questions if you have anything. I mean, these are experts on the subject, so we want to make sure that we take advantage of our time with them. But answer this question, both of you. What might be the roots? And this is really piggybacking off of our keynote address by young person. What might be the roots of why young people choose drug use and are even curious about using? How does our knowledge of this help us in prevention or just engaging with young people?
I'll start, Brandy, if you want me to. I think when you really look at the roots, you almost have to ask why more young people don't engage in substance use, because it is such a difficult time. We all survived it. We all got through adolescence, but probably a lot of us think it was by grace and that we shouldn't really be here, but we are still here. And putting this in the context of adolescent development, of what it means to go, that growing process of moving from being a child to being an adult, and the developmental process of those years involves at its core a child trying to identify who they are, find their identity, who they are, how they define themselves. And that's dependent on so many factors. So during that identity search, there are specific things that occur. There's a need to belong to something. Belonging is critical to our human experience. So sometimes youth will choose to explore with drugs as a way of seeking a sense of belonging, a way to engage with peers. There's a pervasive sense of feeling easily criticized. You know, anything can be interpreted by a young person as a critical comment. That's why that vulnerability is so important, that we share that it's okay. You're not being judged. So any judgment becomes a real problem. So when you feel so susceptible to criticism as you're searching your identity, then you're dealing with uncomfortable feelings. So choosing to use drugs as a way of feeling more comfortable with yourself and feeling more comfortable with others. And then one more I'll mention is just being in that state of really questioning the values of the adults. That's a part of finding your identity. Defining who you are requires challenging the values that have been set before you. It's a normal process. It's critical to owning your own set of values. So the value of not using drugs can be challenged. So there's lots of reasons, many more. But I think keeping in mind that perspective, that developmental perspective, can be helpful in understanding the roots and why so many individuals, like a fourth to a third of our youth, are going to do some exploration. So keeping that in mind, it's like, okay, this is normal, and this is the way you're dealing with it. It's not something that we need to criticize, but be very open to hearing their story.
That's excellent. Wow. Thank you for that. Brandy, we're going to let you close us out because we got about 60 seconds or so. But I do want to take at least one question for this panel, and then we'll come back to you, Brandy, to close it out with something profound in 60 seconds.
All right.
What's our question, Dominique?
Sure thing. It looks like my camera's died, but I'll do my best. What is the language used when you have a child who's using substances and dealing with mental issues and also identifies with the LGBTQ community?
Excellent question. Brandy, you want to take that?
Sure, that's a lot of marginalized communities, all with one person identifying as them. So there have probably been a lot of opportunities, or there's been a history of being pushed aside or demeaned or degraded based on any one of those identifiers. I think first and foremost is that none of that is your fault. Mental illness is a disease. Having, using substances to cope with your mental health concern works. Like, there's a reason why people use substances, right? It fulfills some sort of need. So it would make sense that you would use a tool that works. And certainly being a part of the LGBTQ community is it's not a choice. Like, that just is what you is, that's your identity. And so I think coming in with a really open, concept of what language would you like me to use? Let me give the reins over to you. How would you like to guide this conversation? Because I want to be a helpful force within your life. Like, I want to be a part of your safety net, right? Like, we know research shows us that each person needs at least 3 people that you can call at like 2 a.m. And if you're on the side of the road with like a flat tire, they will give you concrete help any time of day. We need at least 3 of those people. So not just social media friends, right? Or people that we just text. I want to be one of those people for you. How do I do that? What are your needs? What is your boundary? What are some ways that I can honor you in our relationship, whether that's friendship, in our family, in our intimate relationship, if it's a romantic relationship, all of that sort of stuff. Kids all know what they need. It's just a matter of letting them tell us what that is.
Now that's profound. Even though, we're out of time for this panel, but kids know what they need. We just have to give them the space to tell us what they need. That's a profound ending, Brandy, even though you didn't know that was going to be the end probably. But everybody needs to write that down. That is profound right there. I'd like to really thank Brandy and Debbie, because we're informal today. I just really like to thank you both for your participation. Face of a Change, Drug Free Community Coalition looks forward to engaging with you more and more, and just staying on top of what's happening in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County at a level that folks have never seen before through the use of popular culture. So we're really looking forward to engaging with you more and more. And hopefully you will be, well, Brandy's already a sector member. Hopefully Debbie will join us as a sector member as a part of our coalition. So thank you again. Appreciate that. We're moving on to our next panel. Chrissy, what's up?
All right, so for our next panel is all about our youth, so make sure y'all keeping y'all ears open. We just talked about this. So joining us for this panel, we have Young Elder, and then we also have Andre Shao and Akil Baker. We've already met Young Elder, but let's introduce y'all to Andre and Akil. Andre is a rising junior at James Madison University. He's been breakdancing since his freshman year of college and has been the president of the Kinetic Breakdancing Club for a year. Bear with us, he may be a little bit late. We also have Akil Baker joining us. He recently just graduated from Eastern Mennonite University as a social work major, and he also works with Harrisonburg Middle and High School youth on various projects. Welcome, y'all.
Okay. Well, mentioning graduates, Akil is a graduate, and also our very own Chrissy Donald is a graduate. And then we have Coppin State representing in the house here. So that's real. And from JMU, Coppin State, Eastern Mennonite University. These young people are up and coming, and it's really exciting that you all will take the time to talk to some of us older folks. As I mentioned, this is a intergenerational thing, and we have to constantly connect. So let's see. What role do you think hip hop plays in the lives of youth today, whether they live in rural, urban, or suburban areas? In your opinion, what role do you think hip hop plays? Either one of you. Okay, let me hear Akil first.
Okay. Yeah, I can go ahead. Thank you for having me, first of all. However, I think hip hop plays a very important role because young people are listening to hip hop constantly. It's something that's bringing our young people together. They're listening. They're interacting with one another with hip hop. They're using it to express themselves in a way that they cannot do through spoken word. Um, yeah, that's what I have so far. If anyone else wants to take it away, I don't want to take up like all the time just chatting.
Oh, well, we love it when y'all chat. Okay, go ahead, young Elder. What you got?
I was just gonna say, like I said before, hip hop is really a good tool for youth to use to help express themselves, especially when they're not sure how to put their feelings into words. And a lot of times, like in this generation, hip hop can talk about a lot of pain, and a lot of times youth are experiencing a lot of pain. So it's a good way for us to connect.
Yes. Oh, look, we have Andre here. I'm glad you made it. We weren't sure whether you were going to make it or not. So welcome. Okay, we might as well jump right in there. I mean, you're a break dancer. That's a hip hop art, of course. And how easy or hard might it be for young people who want to get into dance using drugs? I mean, what do you want to say to our young people?
I'm just saying, like, sorry. I think anyone can join, really. Dance is very accessible nowadays. You got like online platforms that like teach you how to dance from scratch, and my club, Kinetics, we basically just take anyone. We'll teach you break dance just from, like, if you don't know anything from dance, we'll just teach you, and it's just a welcoming community where we just want you to express yourself and have fun, and just explore your like our slogan is called Define Your Motion, and we just want you to explore yourself and basically define your motion.
Okay, so in terms of, okay, all of you are on college campuses, all right? Is there drug use on college campuses? What type of drugs, and how easy might a young freshman be when it comes to being drawn to cannabis or meth or even alcohol? Is there drug use on your campuses?
So I currently don't live on campus, but I can speak for high school. Drug accessibility was not difficult in high school, especially going to a public school. Like, the thing is, like, youth were able to sell drugs in school, and like police officers, like, they made a new law, like they can't arrest them for real. So yeah, it was pretty accessible in high school. I can't really speak for now because I everything is virtual for me right now.
Oh yeah, it's definitely virtual. So what about and we're not, what about college campuses, period, Akil? Is there drug use happening on college campuses?
Yeah, absolutely. Drug use is happening all the time on all college campuses. Many students are coming in feeling unheard, stressed, so then they're turning to the use of drugs, coping with the stressful life of college and just like everything in general, and then dealing with family situations at home. Many people of color that usually well, from my experience, that go to different universities, are dealing with helping supporting families back home, and then they're here in college trying to do this good thing, graduate, however that they turn to drugs, because at that point that's their kind of like get away from their stressors that they experience on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Andre?
Yeah, I agree with Akil that drug use is basically everywhere. Most college parties will have like alcohol. That's not a very like uncommon sight. And I don't have a lot of friends at JMU that take like more than alcohol, but at my friends at VT, Virginia Tech, they kind of just sit around and smoke vapes all day. So that's a big thing for a lot of people like nowadays, where they don't know what to do with themselves, so they just kind of, I don't know, just smoke and drink alcohol and just like try to forget their problems. like what Akil said.
Try to forget their problems. That's really interesting. We've been talking about young people using drugs because they're trying to forget about their problems or trying to cope. I think young elder talked about that a little bit in her keynote, really trying to cope. Now, this conference is about using hip hop to prevent substance use because it's actually working throughout the country. And we'll hear more about how it's working throughout the country tomorrow. But given what you know, do you think that hip hop can really be used for substance use prevention? Anybody? Go ahead, young.
I definitely think so. Actually, especially with the death of Juice WRLD, like that youth understand that he died from overdose. So, and he talked about drugs a lot. So, you know, just being smart, not when you see somebody pass away, you don't want to just go and do exactly what they did, even though we may be using drugs to cope. Still, nobody wants to lose their life. So unfortunately that he did pass away, some youth can look at that as an example of the path not to go down. I think that's a great example. And then, you know, he also had friends who, like, for example, he had another artist friend named Polo G. I know I'm saying things y'all probably just going over your head, but
say it slow. So Polo G. So folks can write it down in their booklet and you know, and maybe go back to it. Let me just say this. As these young people are talking, we as the older generation or even the young generation that are working to engage with young people, we need to take notes. We expect young people to take notes when we talk, whether it's in the classroom environment or whether it's in Sunday school. We want young people to take notes when we speak. So it's the tables are turned a little bit. Let's make sure that we take some notes. If you don't have your booklet, take it on a piece of paper and go pick up your booklet tomorrow. But take notes as these young people are speaking because they are speaking and at the same time they are teaching. Okay, go ahead.
Definitely. So the Juice WRLD had a friend named Polo G who was also a rapper as well. And in one of his songs, he talked about after the loss of his friend Juice WRLD, he never wanted to do Xanax again. Like he never wanted to do pills, pop pills, or do drugs like that because he saw how it affected his friend. So he used his platform to express how that's not something that he wants to do. So hopefully other youth will look at that and be like, yeah, nah, me neither.
Yes. Yes. Y'all got that? Okay. Does somebody else want to respond to that? Can hip hop really be used for substance use prevention? What's your feeling? What's your feeling, Andre?
I definitely agree with young elder on like how these hip hop icons kind of advocating for less substance abuse. But I have the opinion. I have the opinion that you can't really entirely prevent people from taking these drugs. There's always people gonna be using these drugs to, I guess, party or forget or cope with stuff. So, however, I think hip hop is a very good creative outlet for these, for a lot of young people, and would mitigate the abuse and overdose, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. Akil?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what my peers were saying about the drug use within hip hop. I definitely feel like a lot of now like artists are using their platform to discourage drugs and sharing their experiences, their life experiences, telling stories about how drugs have affected their lives and just different ways how to get over that, and just expressing to people that like I'm using drugs. However, like this is not something that like I like to do. This is not something I want you to do, but using their platform in a different way, basically saying like I'm doing this. However, I don't want you to do this. I want you to move on. I want you to do something better with your life. I want you to like be successful. So yeah, like platforms are definitely being used in a positive way, even though like some of our artists are using drugs. They are using their voices to say like, this is not good. I'm doing it because like I'm having different issues, different things going on in my life, and I want you to get past that. I don't want you to follow the path that I followed.
Oh, that's so significant. So sometimes artists, they might send mixed messages. In one song, they might be talking about drug use, or they might be even using drugs. But they're also talking in another tongue about you don't want to go down this road. And again, we got to refer to the youth keynote. I mean, where she brought that up. Whereas we don't want you to have the same effects that drugs is having on me. We don't want you to even go through this. Okay, so you have these artists, like I think somebody in the chat mentioned J. Cole, somebody mentioned Kid Cudi, and then I think about T.I. and Kendrick Lamar, and you have other, and even Logic. I have to bring up Logic because Logic talks about, I mean, his whole big thing about suicide prevention. I'm sure that you've heard about that, the whole thing about suicide prevention, because would you agree that drug use might lead to suicide prevention? Or I mean, what do you think about that? Because I mean, drug use can lead to suicide. It can lead to death, but what about suicide? What's your feeling? Somebody in the chat said Nipsey. Oh, was it you, Akil? Okay, Akil, go ahead, speak about Nipsey, go.
Yeah, so within Nipsey's messages, he's constantly uplifting people of color, telling nationwide street tales, community building within his music, and just like encouraging listeners to stay persistent and look at the bigger picture, make sacrifices to success. Like it's not just you just getting up being successful, just like making sacrifices, and also just like positive social change. Like he talks about injustices that are happening within the world currently and different things that we're facing. Also Little Baby, like the song Bigger Picture, like he's talking about the different protests and the Black Lives Matter and just like police brutality. So like these platforms are really pushing for a different narrative that we're currently facing.
Oh, it's excellent. And Lil Baby has actually become one of my favorites. I use Bigger Picture in my workshops and everything because he's really saying, he even says, like some people look at hip hop as a Black thing or just a Latinx thing, but it's not a black and white. It's not just black and white, as Lil Baby says, right? In his song. So those of you who are listening, you might want to jot down Lil Baby and check out the Bigger Picture, because I mean, you could actually use that song in a workshop. Okay, you can definitely use that song in a workshop and just, okay, it's so much to talk about when I get your young people, but as we end this trigger presentation, and hopefully we'll do it again, as we end, I just want to end with your voice. What do you want to say to those who are listening about how hip hop can be used to prevent substance use, or how you can successfully engage young people as a part of their prevention or intervention efforts? What do you want to say to the folks who are engaging or listening today? All right, let's start with you, Andre.
Sorry, I didn't get the entire question. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, sure. What do you want to leave? What do you want to say as we end this session to those who are listening, basically?
Oh, I can mostly speak on the dance aspect of hip hop, but basically there are an entire community for you, welcoming you, and basically just there to help you with yourself. I know a lot of I know my sister, she struggles with her mental health a lot, and hip hop dancing is, sorry, I'm trying to formulate, but it's a really good outlet for her. She could have fallen into substance abuse and I guess thoughts of suicide, but this community and this form of artistic expression is a very healthy outlet for her, and is made her feel better about herself. It has formed better relationships with her peers, and that is a great outlet for you.
That's profound. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? How hip hop is serving as a vehicle? I hope everybody's taking notes and everybody is listening. Akil, where you at?
Yeah, I just want to encourage young people to continue listening to your hip hop. Use your music to help you create new pieces like creative writing. And for our adults, like just be transparent. Use hip hop to connect with your student, your child, and just be very transparent so you can help them understand like why this is wrong, or like analyze the message with them. Analyze the message with your child. That is very important. Just analyzing like, okay, this is what this song is saying. This is what this artist is saying. Have them express how they're feeling, and young people just like continue doing your thing.
Oh, yes. Before you speak, young elder, I just want to say, Danny in the chat, and we could read some of these, Dominique, if there are no questions sometime. There's a lot of stuff going on in the chat. For adults, maybe the question is, quote, has any social and cultural change ever happened that wasn't deeply connected to the music of the time, unquote. If we're not using hip hop now, then we're ignoring all the lessons from history. That's profound. And then Jennifer Van Ross says Future is one of the biggest artists who speaks on opioid use, but no longer uses them, but understands that his music is therapeutic for a lot of people, young and old. So there's some good stuff going on in the chat. I just want to make sure that, and Mario is going to town here. Ben Stevenson says hip hop seems to bridge a connect, and music in general, but can be used as tools for teachable moments. I'm loving that. Okay, young elder, how do you want to end this thing?
Honestly, I would end it just by saying to the adults, encourage the youth around you to find their passion. Whether it's music, whether it's hip hop dance, whether it doesn't have anything to do with hip hop, just encourage youth to find their passion, because once you're passionate about something, then drug use it sits on the back burner. You know, you're more able to focus on what you want to do to progress yourself, push you to where you need to be, and just turn that pain into power, because at the end of the day, everybody's going through something. So to the youth, just continue to take your difficult situations and learn from them and progress from them. And to the adults, continue to provide opportunities for the youth to be successful, to find their passion, and just be who they want to be, so that way they won't find themselves in situations where they feel like they have to turn to drugs. Because essentially, we kind of want to get them before we even have to talk about drug prevention. We just want to help support the youth so that drug use is not even on their minds.
Yes, I mean, that was a perfect ending, because we are talking about prevention. We're talking about intervention also, but the whole key is we want to prevent this from even happening. We want to prevent young people from even thinking about using drugs. And I love how young people use the chat and promote what they're doing. I love that, young elder. I hear you, I see you. You know, so that's young people, they're entrepreneurs. They're working on a whole nother level. Things that we may have been afraid to do, or cautious about doing, young people are actually doing it. So thank you very much for this young people shout out, this panel. It was excellent. We appreciate you and we thank you. All right, so here we go. Surely can't use drugs if participating in the hip hop art of breakdancing, and that's next. Scott, Pastor Forney.
Hello again. I want to introduce to you JMU's Kintex Breakdance Crew's purpose to bring together those who appreciate, have a passion for breakdance, and want to keep the hip hop culture alive throughout James Madison University. The dancers that will be featured are Andre, Kelly, Brenna, Stephen, Tashika, Justin, Jocelyn, and Sean, Kyra, and Myra.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hip-hop has a powerful culture that was built over decades of history. Its elements consist of rapping, DJing, graffiti, knowledge of self, and breakdance. These different art forms within hip-hop play a pivotal role in engaging the youth to make positive changes within themselves and their communities. This is how we can use hip-hop to prevent. After all, the principles of hip-hop say, peace, love, unity, and have fun.
All right, so we want to thank Andre as well as Kinetics for joining us and as well as that amazing, amazing video. All right, so moving right along, we want to do something a little interactive to get y'all involved and to kind of see where your heads are at right now. So we want y'all to collect your thoughts on what you've learned and shared during our time together thus far. In doing that, you will see a link being posted in the chat very shortly. This link will take you to a website where you can ultimately capture in one word what you've learned today so far. So using this one word description, you can use as many entries as you want. Ultimately, the bigger a word gets, the more it's used. So for example, let's say 5 people said knowledge, but 2 people said hip hop. That's why knowledge is bigger and hip hop is a little bit smaller. So once again, using that link in the chat, we want you to go to that website and type in a word, as many as you want, as long as they are one word responses. And ultimately, let's see how you're feeling.
You can also put in what messages stood out for you. You know, what got you excited. Put in a word about how you feel right now.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully you feel good. You know, put in these words. This is our remix of our thoughts on day 1. And again, put in as many words as you want.
All right. It's moving. And there's a lot going on. That's awesome.
Ooh, seeing some things coming through. Got some education coming up on the side. Hip hop is growing. Knowledge is standing strong. Oh, test. All right. I see you. Getting some music in, a classic. We love to see it. Empathy. Ooh, I like to hear that one. Yeah, we do need a little bit of that working with our youth for sure.
And positivity.
I love it. Love it. Listen goes along well with empathy. Get a little bit of empathetic, positive listening is what I'm kind of gathering right now. Maybe a little of some collaborative education I see up there.
Expression, connection. Wow, that's strong.
Looks like the poll is filled up in the chat. All right.
I like that hope. That hope is powerful.
So since the chat is or since the website is full, if you want to share in the chat a word, we can look through there. We want to continue sharing our thoughts, how we're feeling. You want to share it all. We want your one-word responses.
I see you in the chat there, Danny, with knowledge. Can't say I've heard of that rapper, but I do like the acronym knowledge, or KAAN, can, knowledge against all nonsense. I'm here for that.
Yes.
I see excited. That's a good one. That's
Mhm.
amped up, excited.
Kids know what they need for sure, for sure.
Yes. Is Tim still here?
He's popping up and down in the chat, so I think so.
Okay.
Yes,
Tim,
I'm still here.
how do you analyze what we see here? These thoughts that are coming up and that are describing everybody's experience.
To me, these words prove the theory of hip hop being able to prevent, because if we had did first words that come to mind when you think of hip hop before people logged on, this would look totally different. So it's really about the experience that shifts and triggers your emotion that then gives you the hope to move forward. So I'm excited by it. So it's incumbent upon us to keep this going. So after today and tomorrow, one of the takeaways, what are you going to do in your practice that's different after having today's experience than maybe before you came on today?
Thank you for that, Tim. Unquestionably, it would have definitely looked different, probably, if we had done this in the beginning, which might not be a bad idea tomorrow to do this in the beginning. But I want to make sure that folks know that we see you. I think knowledge, hip hop, and hope are the biggest words. So we have to definitely keep hope alive. That was wonderful.
Yeah. But then, when you think about the knowledge, it's the knowledge of hip hop, it's the knowledge of young people, the knowledge of your conditions, the knowledge of how to effectively communicate. So it's knowledge beyond what you may personally think knowledge is. So in order to really operate in knowledge, you have to first acknowledge.
Yes. Somebody put acknowledge in there. That's a good word. Yeah, you have to first acknowledge. Okay, that was what a wonderful exercise. As we recap, that was definitely a wonderful day. It's been a wonderful day.
Most definitely.
These 2 hours have been literally full. We heard so many amazing and talented people today, and the audience energy was just as amazing. As we wrap up day one, I want to share now, and I will also share tomorrow, about our strategic prevention framework. If we could just pull that up, this SPF, this framework. This framework is really comprising everything that we're doing with the Faces for Change Coalition. And we're actually starting with assessment. What we're doing right now, we are assessing. We are looking at the population's needs. We're looking at what resources are there. We are communicating to you about hip hop development, which is at the core of our environmental strategy. And we're working to fill in the gaps. Okay, so this is what the first year of Faces for Change is about, and probably part of the second year, right? Although ongoing, you see the assessment, the building capacity. We are doing it. We are building capacity as we move forward. So if you know of folks that are interested in the work that we're doing, please invite them to check us out. We come to the conference tomorrow, give us a call. Then we're going to be implementing, and then we're constantly evaluating. I know Brandy can relate to this. We're constantly evaluating to see where young people are when we start the program, where they end up the first year, the next year. So this is an ongoing process. So this strategic prevention framework is really, really a critical piece that we go by. It's a part of what government mandates, and I think it's definitely a great model. So if anybody else, we have any questions in the chat that we did not address, Dominique, we have a few minutes before we end. Let's address them. Do you see any in the chat that we did not address?
I'm scrolling through the chat and our Q&A. I'm not seeing anything at the moment, but bear with me.
Yeah, I think there was one in the first session. You all are awesome. We are so excited about Faces for Change. We are so excited about, I just want to recognize Pastor Forney, Dominic King. I want to recognize Chrissy Donald. I want to recognize Destiny Brown, Timothy Jones, Philo Harper, and the entire team has worked so hard to pull us together. Just know that we thank you. We thank each other. We hug each other. Some of us maybe have never physically met on some levels, but have been so tight in this effort. But before you go, we want to make sure you fill out the post-evaluation, which is just like the one you took earlier. If it's the pre for you, that's cool. There's the link that is in the chat. So just click on that and let us know what you're feeling. It might be the pre for you, and hopefully you'll come back tomorrow and it'll be the post for you. We'll just see what happens. But it's super easy and it's quick. So make sure you take the time to fill that work out. Are there any comments in the chat that you want to read out? That we want to just highlight anything?
Sure thing. We've got Debbie Kipps Vaughn saying that this work is awesome. Hip hop is a psychologically sound, encompasses what works. And it encompasses what works with supporting what youth need. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Tomorrow is going to be equally exciting. If you could just put up our hashtag in our social media, I'd appreciate that. Tomorrow is going to be equally exciting. We have a lot going on, don't we, Pastor Dominique, right? Chrissy, we got a lot.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's actually going to be fun. We have some folks from actually not only Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, but some folks from DC and from Houston, Texas, and Seattle, Washington, who will literally be talking about how they use hip hop in substance use prevention. So that is going to be wonderful. Then we have the Honorable Judge Anthony Bailey from Harrisonburg and Lieutenant Chris Monahan from Harrisonburg Police Department, and Ben Stevenson, who's going to be talking about just how substance use prevention is being dealt with within the system. That's going to be really exciting. And we got a serious keynote by Ian Levy of Hip Hop Ed. We're really excited about his keynote. He's a dynamic young scholar coming up, and I'm excited because actually we're getting ready to publish something together that should be coming out soon. And then we have right from Futuro Latino, who is the other DFC located in Harrisonburg that focuses in on the Latinx community. He'll be here tomorrow talking along with Imani Morris on the road program, and we got Department of Parks and Rec. And then we have Dr. Chris Johnson of Divine Unity Community Church, which is huge among young people. So we got some spoken word tomorrow. It goes on and on. Director of Boys and Girls Club. We got Danny Fleming, who's involved in the Harrisonburg City School Board and the Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority. And also he's a representative on Faces for Change Coalition. And then we got Frank, I don't want to mess his name up, but it's Scottataceti, who is working in Harrisonburg as his first criminal justice. So this was wonderful. I can't believe that we're 10 minutes early. We worked so hard. how we want to, does anybody have anything else to say to leave us with that's kind of profound? You know, Tim, you always have something to say. What do you want? How are you going to check us out?
Well,
I'm hot.
well, it would be a misservice if we didn't provide some lyrics as a service to let people understand how this prevention crew works this. You got to get below the surface because we said hip hop is a spirit. It's a power force, and then you feel it and you get transformed every time you come near it. So we go way beyond hip hop to prevent. It's really hip hop to invent a precedent to rechange the mental resonance of the essence of your spiritual and psychological presence. We talk about a drug, we talk about dope, and it's really about being hype. We could take it back to Hype Fun Learn and go old school for all of those OGs for their concerns. So we talking about reinventing a new gang because we got our own thing with our own swing, and we go throw an H up for that Berg. Come back tomorrow, tell somebody and share the knowledge that you heard. And so we just planting those seeds that's gonna bloom from the concrete. This is your man representing YPCI. Let the brother speak. Peace. Let's get it, man. Let's rewrite history without a pen. You dig?
Yes, very good. All right, we're gonna go out with some music. And thank you, Tim. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. And we will see.
Shout out to Pop. He
Who's
knows
that
who he
freestyle
is.
fire?
Shout out to Pop. He know who he is. I'm trying to work my way out the doghouse. So shout out to Pop.
Yes, and I want to give a shout out to Sylvia Quintan, who was very instrumental in helping me to even write this grant. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Attorney Quintan for her energy and her beautiful spirit. And shout out again to our coalition chair, and shout out to Star, the spirit doctor, for even naming the coalition Faces for Change back in 2009. We want to definitely recognize her. Back then, we couldn't get a grant, but thanks to the energy of everybody in Harrisonburg, Rockingham County, who came together to work with me to write the grant, a shout out to all of you. So we're shouting out, and have a wonderful and blessed day. Be blissful, be thankful, and be safe.
Peace.
Peace.